Hey guys, Major Kate here, and welcome to part 2 of this Master Debrief. In case you missed part 1, the link will be on the top right hand screen. Go ahead and catch up. We'll wait for you. Alright, now that Bobby's out of the room, let's get to work. Episode 6 The Mine in the AO. It's not so much of a tactic, but the story of how this channel got started. It all happened when Warzone first came out, and it was just me and my best friend, and we could only play trios at the time. So I quickly had to figure out a way to outmaneuver and outperform the enemy. So immediately I got to work. And after studying the great generals throughout time, the likes of Genghis Khan, Miltiades, Alexander the Great, and Napoleon Bonaparte, I saw trends. I saw maneuvers, tactics, strategies that were shared amongst different points in battle and at different points in history, and decided that maybe, just maybe, I could apply this to my gameplay. But the deeper that I dug into this rabbit hole, the more arsenal I had. Arsenal that I now use to turn the tide of any match in Warzone. I had developed the ability to maneuver and turn situations to my favor, and then decided to share them with you. Because in people's mind, strategy is just non-existent. Let's be serious. It doesn't exist in people's mind. What is strategy? You know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah, Bobby. Yeah. Non-existent to you. I get it. Or they see it as just another form of tips and tricks. People usually want the recipe for victory handed down to them by some all-knowing guru. They seem to think of it as if I do A and B, then I will get C, with C obviously being the win. True strategy, however, is positioning yourself to have more options, to be able to do A, B, or C depending on the circumstances. First, let's get something straight. The high ground is as useless as it is worthless. For every advantage it gives you, it would also take something away. This is one of those tactics that it's overused in Warzone and gives the illusion that the person holding the position of power is invincible. But you couldn't be more wrong. If we draw a pros and cons list, the cons outweigh the pros every single time. On the good side, you have visibility and at-hand concealment. At-hand concealment meaning that, you take a few steps back and your whole body's concealed. But on the con side, you have visibility and predictability. The reason why visibility is both a pro and a con is because you get a massive amount of visibility. And even though it's a good thing, if the enemy repositions or gets off the X, then your eyes are gonna have a lot of ground to cover. Just so you know, there is such a thing as too much of a good thing. The way I personally use the high ground is more of a support slash overwatch position, rather than a position of power. What I mean by this is that I have half of my team on the ground at all times, meaning that just in case they need to reload or pop plates, I can cover, and vice versa. Again, the high ground offers a visual prowess over your enemies. From up here, I can see everything. Even you hiding in that bush. Now, for reversals. If someone has the high ground, the best way to counter it is to engage and then immediately get off the X and reposition. Like I said before, their eyes will have a lot of ground to cover. It will be a long fight, but this way you will constantly hold that position of power against them. It's important to know that the high ground gives you a false sense of security. And if you stay on it for too long, 1 ounce of creativity will defeat you. When fighting a team who holds the high ground, it can seem as it takes forever for the engagement to finish. It's important that once you down a player, you immediately move in to close that gap. That way, you can catch them getting off a revive or popping plates. In conclusion, be wary of the high ground, as the seductive visual prowess has defeated many. All the way up there, where the air is rarefied, you lose touch. You forget of the many, many imminent dangers around you. Holding the high ground for an extended period of time will make you lazy, stupid, and unconcerned. I personally like countering the high ground more than using it. Even though it has its perks, I cannot think of a better feeling than drop kicking someone off their high horse. This is not a retreat tactic by any means. Low compress is to see the current events and know that it will be futile to engage, and it will be more beneficial in the long run to either collect supplies or get your team back in the AO. There is a time to fight and a time to go dark, and you need to know the difference. Every engagement will cost you something, whether that be a teammate, ammo, armor plates. Even your position is at stake. You know how third parties like to lurk? There comes a point in the battlefield where you must count your losses and replenish your strength. Remember, Warzone is a marathon, not a sprint. The low compressed tactic is just a mental state of seeing the bigger picture. More specifically, it's the act of not throwing away the entirety of the match for that single petty engagement. You heard that, Bobby? He is 900 meters away. Don't take the fucking shot. You're gonna miss a damn shot, Bobby. Don't take the shot. I don't care. I don't care. Now, this contradicts everything we discussed in episode 4, the hyper-aggressive tactic. In that episode, we talked about working with the minimum to get the job done and moving before you are ready, which is what I like to call killing on a budget. But to distinguish the two of them, here are some rule of thumbs. Number 1, if you do not have a good weapon or if you do not have the right weapon for the engagement. Number 2, if you do not have armor. That's a dumb fight. Number 3, if you're outnumbered in a more than 2-to-1 ratio. Trust me, I love rooting for the underdog, but 1v4s in Warzone is pretty damn hard, so get your team back. Number 4, if the opposite team has a position of power, and even though I showed you how to counter this, literally about 2-3 minutes ago, still use that caution. And 5th, if conditions are not optimal, like a circle closing or the enemy is using a vehicle. If 2 of these are combined, then it's best to go into low compression. Low compression means to use those sound and visual cues that we talked about in episode 2, the high compress tactic, to lead you to the path to the least resistance, to get the objective, or to get your team back into a fighting position. Low compression is about getting your team back in the fight. Engaging a full team of 4, holding the high ground would be really stupid. So instead, let me get the chopper, right? So now I take one of their vehicles, and they're like, where did that guy come from? You know? Then what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna drop it on them as a distraction. I'm gonna grab some guns just for self-defense. Notice, defense, not offense. Drop down quickly and get my teammate back. Same story here. Engaging a team of 2 by myself that are holding the high ground with this Nerf gun, Bison, would be unwise. I'm better off going into low compression, getting my teammate back. And then when he's up in the air, then I can then tag him a couple times, re-engage, or move on from there. There is only one reversal, and that is obviously high compressed. If the enemy's got a visual on you, you might have to engage, or you can outmaneuver them to complete your objective. But remember that there is a point of no return. There is a point where you have to fight. A sliver of time where the enemy becomes unavoidable. Low compression during a time like this will equal to you getting shot in the back. completing that contract or reviving your teammate will mean absolutely nothing if you die in the process. Episode 9 talks about the second-to-second thinking and how crushing your enemy totally should always be a top priority. When you're down a player, most people's second-to-second thinking goes as follows. Number 1, he went down, so his teammate must be nearby, which is not always the case. And number 2, he's down and he's no longer a threat, which is always the case. And in that split second, that is where you lose your window of opportunity. In that sliver of time where you overthink, you miss the chance to eliminate him. Right after the engagement, there should be no hesitation. You put him down, you send him to the gulag or to the main lobby. There's no just thinking about it, just do it. Or the second part of your second-to-second thinking comes into effect. The part where you tell yourself that he is no longer a threat. And damn it, Bobby, you couldn't be more wrong. Even though he's down, the enemy is still a threat to you and your team in one of 3 ways. First, let's get the obvious one out of the way, and that is that he can still ping. Second, he can plan. He can tell his teammates to forget about him, go buy him at a buy station. Then he can drop on you, get his weapons back, just to fight you over again, but this time with his whole team converging on your position. Third, last but not least, he can self-revive, and there is simply no way to tell if the enemy has a self-revive or not until they start doing it. But the best one of them all is mixing 2 and 3. Tell his team to distract you, meanwhile he self-revives. And congratulations, now you're fighting a war on 2 sides. So don't lose that second and crush your enemy totally. Now, for these case studies, I'm not going to show you the damn obvious of me just eliminating a couple guys, even though that's very fun to do. Instead, I'm going to show you what happens when people don't crush me totally, and how you can really shift the entire engagement around. Even though I'm down, my teammate is going to give me a little distraction. And then I get that self-revive. If I get that self-revive, then voila, you're on your way to the gulag. Bye-bye. This is a look at a couple tactics working seamlessly together. First, we're going to go into episode 4, the hyper-aggressive maneuver, working with what you got and kill the enemy on the budget. Now, I'm at a severe handicap. My plates are gone, and the enemy obviously has superior firepower. Immediately go into episode 1, get off the X. With the enemy hot on my tail, it's gonna be a string of repositions, not just a single one. And then we immediately switch to episode 8. Low compression. That would be to complete the objective instead of prioritizing the kill. So now I'm using all the cues that he has given me to maneuver around him to get to my loadout. And then we're going to go back to episode 1. After we reposition, we re-engage. There's only one reversal, and that is when the enemy is in the immediate AO. Immediate means he's in your line of sight. Obviously, don't stop to eliminate the guy if you have a guy standing right in front of you. That would be a very dumb decision. But if he's not, get that guy in and out of here. Following the arrow with the sword is a mixture of the hyper-aggressive maneuver and the envelopment maneuver. More specifically, the close envelopment. This tactic is an offensive one with extremely high risk but yield remarkably high rewards. It is a 2-part tactic, so first, let's start with defining what each one means. First is the arrow. The arrow is your opening move, your initial point of contact, whether that be a mid or long range attack, throwing a C4 into a second story of a building, or calling a cluster strike on the roof. It's that nice, warm love tap that initiates the engagement. In other words, the arrow is...
Surprise, motherfucker!
Next, let's talk about the sword, which follows right after. The sword is that close-range aggressive woodwork that disrupts and sows confusion into the enemy. But what makes the maneuver so effective is the speed and the suddenness of it. The combination of hard-hitting firepower followed by a close-range barrage is one that is extremely hard to counter. The minute he threw a C4, I'm moving in. No hesitation. Obviously, catch him on the back pedal. Blading up. Easy cleanup. Got one down and popped the other on the second floor. Now that they're going to hold their position and try to recuperate, I'm going to counter that by rushing in and seal the deal.
RTB for resupply. Contact!
Got popped pretty hard, so I'm going to get off the axe and play it up. And then I'm going to send a cluster strike their way.
Target marked. Requesting close air support. Zero, good copy. Cluster strike away.
The arrow will be my cluster strike. It's also going to push them back, just in case they're waiting for me to go up. Now, on the last two bombardments, I'm going to use the sound to conceal me going up. And when they crawl out of the little hole, I'll be right there to greet them. This tactic is one of my favorites of all time, and one that I personally encourage you to master. It's a good way to take people from the high ground or counter their position. I personally cannot think of one occasion where you will benefit from attacking someone and then pulling back, giving them the time to recuperate, get off revives, or pop plates. I cannot think of one. Unless you're into the whole waste all my ammo and armor plates, which is a popular trend to see amongst the rooftop camping community. But hey, I can't relate. Not the type to cook s'mores out of the side of a building. I like to get a little bit more personal. Also, I do stream every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on Twitch. Link in the description below. If you found this video helpful in any way, consider subscribing, and a like rating is always appreciated. Major Cade, out.